Good afternoon, guys. Today's topic A is a narrative I wrote about the stories we tell about aging are breaking us. A long form narrative essay I wrote. So please sit back and enjoy. Okay, here we go. The stories we tell about aging are breaking us. A long form narrative essay. The stories we tell about aging begin early. They start in childhood, in the way we watch our grandparents move through the world slowly, carefully, with a kind of practiced dignity. They continue in adulthood in the way we reassure ourselves that our parents are still sharp, still independent, still doing fine. These stories are comforting and they are wrong. I learned this slowly over the years of clinical practice and then all at once in the way these realizations often arrive through a single patient whose life unraveled faster than anyone expected. He was a retired machinist, the kind of man who kept his tools in perfect order and his routines even more so. He lived alone in a house he'd built himself, a place that held decades of memories and the kind of familiarity that made independence feel just a second, guys. I'll be right with you. That made independence feel inevitable. His daughter visited when she could, holidays, long weekends, the occasional midweek check in. She believed, as many do, that aging would give her warning, that decline would be gradual, that she would have time. Then came the fall. Then came the hospitalization. Then came the delirium that never fully cleared. Then came the truth. The life he had been managing with quiet uh, competence was gone. His daughter arrived breathless, apologetic, overwhelmed. She kept saying, I didn't know it could happen this fast. And I remember thinking most people don't, because the story they've been told about aging is a lie. The myth of gentle slope. We imagine aging as a slow descent, a gentle slope we can walk down with preparation and grace. But aging is not a slope, it is a series of cliffs. One day, one day an older adult is managing their medications, paying their bills, cooking their meals. The next day, they are lost in a fog of confusion, unable to remember whether they've eaten, unable to navigate the home they've lived in for decades, a hospitalization, an infection, a fall. These are not small events. They are tectonic shifts. Families cling to the belief that we will see decline coming. Clinicians often reinforce it unintentionally by focusing on stability. During brief encounters, policymakers design design systems around predictable trajectories that do not exist. The truth is that aging is dynamic, unstable, and deeply sensitive to disruption, and yet we continue to plan for it as if we were linear. The myth, the myth of the ever-present family. Another story, the one that shapes policy as much as it shapes guilt. It is the belief that families will simply absorb whatever care an older adult needs. We imagine a daughter with flexible hours, a son who can take time off, a spouse who is still healthy enough to lift, bathe, supervise, soothe. But families today are stretched thin. They are geographically scattered. They are working full time, raising children, managing chronic illness of their own. They are exhausted before caregiving even begins. I have watched spouses in their 80s try to manage wandering incontinence, hallucinations. I have watched adult children burn through vacation days, savings, marriages. I have watched caregivers collapse in the emergency rooms, dehydrated and sleep deprived, whispering, I can't do it I can't do this anymore. We tell ourselves that family caregiving is an act of love, and it is, but we ignore the truth that love alone cannot substitute for a system. The assumption that families can do it all is not just wrong, it is cruel. The romance of home we cling to the idea that home is always the safest, most dignified place for an older adult. It is it it's a comforting belief, and sometimes it's true, but homes were never designed for cognitive impairment, mobility loss, or the need for constant supervision. I have seen older adults living in houses full of tripping hazards, expired medications, and stairs that turn into traps. I have seen caregivers sleeping in chairs because there is no space for a second bed. I have seen people isolated for days because winter storms made the driveway impassable. We celebrate aging in place as if it were a universal good, but aging in place without support is not independence. It is abandonment, dressed up as autonomy. The stigma of institutional care. Families often arrive at the threshold of assisted living or memory care feeling like they've failed. They whisper apologies. They cry in parking lots. They believe that moving a loved one into a facility means giving up. But I have seen the opposite. I have seen older adults flourish with structure, routine, and socialization. I have seen caregivers reclaim their marriages, their health, their sleep. I have seen safety restored, dignity, dignity protected, and loneliness eased. The assumption that institutional care is inher- inherently bad keeps families in unsafe situations far too long. It prevents honest conversation. It delays transitions until crisis forces them. Sometimes, sometimes the most loving choice is not the closest one, but the safest one. The friction of personal responsibility. Perhaps the most damaging assumption is that long-term care is a private problem, something families should solve on their own with grit savings, and sacrifice. But the scale of need, especially within dementia, is a public health issue. We treat aging as if it were an individual failure rather than a universal human experience. The result is a system built on improvisation. Families improv- im- improvise care plans, clinicians improvise support, policymakers improvise funding, and older adults pay the price. Aging is not a niche concern. It is it is the central demographic reality of our time. Yet we continue to behave as if the old stories still fit. When the stories break, when our assumptions about aging fail, people fall through the cracks, quietly, predictably, and at scale. A woman with mild dementia wanders outside at night because her daughter had to work a double shift. A man with heart failure misses his medications because he can no longer read labels. A caregiver collapses from exhaustion. A family spends down their savings until they qualify for Medicaid. A clinician hesitates to name the truth. The current plan is no longer safe. These are not personal failures. They are systematic failures born from outdated narratives. A new story for an aging nation. We, if we want to build a system that works, we must start by rewriting the story of aging itself. Aging is dynamic, not linear. Caregiving is infrastructure, not charity. Home, home is a setting, not a guarantee of safety. Facilities are options, not failures. Long-term care is a public responsibility, not a private burden. The old assumptions were built for a world that no longer exists. The new world demands new stories, stories that see aging stories that see aging clearly, honor its complexity, and build systems worthy of people living in it. Because the truth is simple. Aging is not a problem to solve. It's a reality to support. And the way we support it will define who we are as a society. Okay, guys, give me a bit to put be together for you, and I'll be back on shortly with that. For now, Gator Wellness, take care, folks.